Jesus Christ. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I'm going to be talking about the Black Lives Matter movement and what it's like being black or of colour whilst living in the UK. If you've seen the news or been on social media within the last 2 to 3 weeks, you probably would have heard of the Black Lives Matter movement. It's literally taken over the entire world by storm right now, which is amazing. This should have been done a long time ago, but it's better late than never. I personally think, like, the fact that it's got so much recognition now and there's so much protests happening and everything, I just think it's incredible. So I have a lot to say on this issue. I've spoken to some people who have told me about their experiences, which I'm going to be speaking about in this video, and I just kind of want to make this to inform people and let them know, really. So a lot of the things I've been seeing on social media is people commenting that, oh, why is this movement in England? Why are there protests happening all over the world and all this rubbish? And if you think that racism just happens in the USA, you are sadly mistaken. It might not be as obvious as what it is in the States, and, you know, there might not have been as many killings, but there have been killings and there is racism out there every day. You probably have said some comments within your lifetime which you didn't even realise was racist, which I will be getting into as well. I learned a term like last week from a woman who spoke to me about it and I didn't even know this existed. It is an issue. Racism is global. It's not just in one country, it's in every single country for many different races. But just for this video, I am going to be talking about the matter of race regarding black people and mixed race people within the UK. So the movement actually started in 2013 after the murder of Trayvon Martin. Now, for those of you who don't know anything about who Trayvon Martin is, I highly recommend that you go and research him. The case was just a mess, and he basically was a 17-year-old boy that got shot by his neighbourhood watch and was murdered. He died from that shooting, and the person that shot him didn't get put in prison. He got acquitted, and that sparked a massive riot in America that it wasn't right, it wasn't justice for him. There was no implication of the actions that were caused to what happened to this poor kid. He didn't deserve that, it wasn't right. So the movement started. So that movement happened in 2013, that's when it started. And we're now in 2020, which is a whole 7 years later. It's continued to get worse, and we all know about the murder of George Floyd. Now, if you haven't heard about who he is, I don't know where you've been, because it's just horrific, his murder, and that's what it is. I'm calling it a murder because that's what it was. If you have someone on your neck continuously saying you can't breathe, then that person cannot breathe and you are taking their life away from them. So if you don't actually know what the movement stands for, I'm just going to go onto their site and actually read it out for you. So the Black Lives Matter was founded in 2013 in response to the acquittal of Trayvon Martin's murderer. Black Lives Matter Foundation Incorporated is a global organisation in the US, UK and Canada whose mission is to eradicate white supremacy and build local power to intervene in violence inflicted on black communities by the state and vigilantes. By combating and countering acts of violence, creating space for black imagination and innovation, and centering black joy, we are winning immediate improvements in our lives. Racism has been around for a very long time. Clearly, it has got better. I'm not saying that, you know, it's as bad as what it was 200 years ago. Obviously, that's not the case. But the fact that it's still around 200 years later, it's just mind-boggling to me. I will never understand racism towards any race. Black, Hispanic, Indian, Chinese, I just don't understand it. If you take away the colour of our skin, we have the same colour bones and we all have the same colour blood. So please tell me why, just because the colour of our skin is different to yours, that means we're less of a person. I just don't understand it. And then I quickly want to talk about the statues and the riots that have been going on in the UK at the moment. And statues are being defaced and torn down, especially in Bristol. This is the incident I'm going to be talking about. So Edward Colston was a slave owner in Bristol and he enslaved so many people. I don't want to get too much into his background because I don't want to waste my breath, if I'm being honest with you. You can research him in your own time. And his statue got torn down. Now people they keep referring to the protesters as they've done this, they've ruined this, blah blah blah. But that's a small proportion of people. I do agree with the statue coming down, 100%. I do not think it should have been there, standing proud. I don't think that should have been the case. Why would you want to celebrate somebody who'd done that in history? But I do not condone the way that they tore down the statue. If you want something done, I always feel like you can't fight fire with fire. You know, if you act violent, then you'll receive violence and you'll receive hate. If you give hate and show anger and angst, then that's what you'll get back. I feel like if you do it a bit more peacefully, then, you know, you might be hurt more. That is just my opinion on that issue. I don't want to speak about that anymore. So, like I said, this has all been sparked from the murder of George Floyd. Sadly, he was not the first, and he probably won't be the last black person to lose his life due to racism. I am so incredibly blown away by how many people are only now realising the issue with race. There's been a lot of white people talking about white privilege and acknowledging their white privilege and speaking about it, and I've seen so many influencers online using their platform to voice this and to show their support and to learn and to grow, and that is just incredible that there are so many people willing to change, because change comes from change. You're not going to sit there and not change how you act and your views on things if you don't learn or aren't willing to learn. So the term that I learned recently is called microaggression. Now, let me get the definition for this up. The term microaggressions was coined by black man Harvard professor and psychiatrist Dr. Chester Pierce in 1970. He was studying the persistent presence of stigmatizing representations of black people in television. He defined it as subtle, stunning, often automatic and non-verbal exchanges which are put-downs of black people. So I'm just going to give some examples. Where are you from? Where were you born? You speak good English, assuming that just because we're of colour, we weren't born here, which is stupid. And a white man or woman clutches their purse or checking their wallet as a black or Latino person approaches or passes. A white person waits to ride the next elevator when a person of colour is in it. People saying, I'm not racist, I have black friends. You can still be racist and have black friends. So many things that have been said to me throughout my life which I didn't even notice were a form of racism until I found that term out. I put out a plea on my social medias to ask people for their experiences of racial issues growing up in the UK, and when I was doing this I was thinking to myself, wow, do you know what, I'm really lucky that I haven't actually experienced like many things in my life. And then when I found that term, I sat back and reflected on so many things and I was like, wow, I really have. But the UK and the world has kind of brainwashed everybody into thinking that these things are now socially acceptable and brushing them under the carpet when they're not. It's not a normal thing to say, and actually sit back and think about it. What you're saying is quite offensive. You might not mean for it to be offensive. I've had people say things to me that I know wasn't meant in a harmful way or offensive way, and I know that they're not racist people that have said these comments to me, but when I think about what they've said, it is quite racist. I've been compared to every single mixed race person that they know. We look nothing alike, we just share a skin colour. Not every single mixed race person or black person looks the same, and saying that they do is really racist unless they actually look alike, like physical features. Skin colour is not saying two people look alike. Fact. Sorry, I keep looking down, but I've got this book and I've got so many notes, I don't want to miss anything out. So if I keep looking down, I do apologise. So I'm going to be talking a bit about my personal experience before I go on to talk about all the other people's experiences that I've got responses from, which I'm just going to say now, I'm extremely grateful for everybody that contacted me, everybody that told me their story. Some of the things are absolutely horrific, which I read, made me tear up, made me realise how much of an issue this is, and just because you don't hear about it in the media 24/7 doesn't mean it's not happening 24/7 in people's lives. It's a massive issue, and the fact that people are realizing this now, it is amazing. And if this had happened years ago, so many lives could have potentially been saved, but that is just hindsight, and I can't sit here and say that all the people's lives that have been lost to racial issues would still be here today. That I'm not saying that, but if this movement in this scale had happened a long time ago, the chances are many lives would have been saved. So growing up, I lived in a very diverse town. Like, there was a lot of black people, there was a lot of white people, a lot of Asian people, there was a lot of ethnicities in my town, which I'm very, very grateful for. But in my primary school, I was the only mixed race girl. There was no black girls in my year, actually, and I've just reflected on that. So in my year, we had black boys, we had mixed race boys, but I was the only mixed race girl for a long, long time. All of my friends were white, obviously, and they all had had nice long straight hair, and growing up I was like, oh my god, I want their hair, because you want to fit in. You do mimic your friends and what they look like. Every kid copies each other, and I knew that I didn't look like my friends because of my hair made me so different. So I straightened my hair to try and fit in, which ruined my hair eventually, and I'd done that for many years, all throughout secondary school. It was the same, straightening my hair, but then a lot of the other girls in secondary school who were also mixed race or black, they straightened their hair as well, because that was what was seen as being pretty and attractive to people. You go with what you know. All of the beautiful people that were on our TVs and was on films and we saw in school, like the popular pretty people, they all looked a certain way, and you kind of mimic that behaviour and in turn tried to look like them. So it wasn't until I started university, really, that I took off all my extensions and I was just like, I'm just gonna let my hair be natural and do its own thing. So my mum is white and my dad is Black Caribbean, and they broke up when I was quite young. So I lived with my mum, I grew up with my mum, but I did still see my dad. But my dad doesn't have an accent, really. Sometimes when he says things, you can tell he has a bit of an accent, but all in all, he doesn't. He's very, very British speaking. Obviously, so is my mum, because she's British, and so is my dad. My dad is British, his parents are from Barbados. He is well spoken, and so is my mum, which is kind of why I sound like I do. I've heard a lot of the times, oh, you're really well spoken. I'm just like, well, what did you expect? Did you expect me to sound different because of my colour? That's ridiculous. Why? Why would you assume that I can't speak well and I'm not articulate just because I'm a certain race? That is offensive. An issue that I don't think many white people will ever have to face is growing up, when I would be invited round to families' houses, I would always think, oh, what if their family are racist? What if they don't like me? What if they say things because of my colour? And for a kid, that shouldn't be going through a kid's head. They should just feel accepted just for who they are. That mindset has stuck with me throughout my life. When I first started going clubbing, I was scared that I was going to get into fights with people who were racist. Luckily, I never did. I never bumped into anybody that said anything racial to me when they were drunk. That thought was still in my mind. I was like, oh my god, what if a group of people start on me because of my skin colour? Going to university, I was like, what if I'm living in halls with people who don't like black people and I'm stuck in a house with them? What if they're horrible to me? Luckily, they were not. I had amazing housemates at university. That mindset of being worried of going somewhere because of your colour shouldn't be around in the society today. You shouldn't be wary of going somewhere or meeting people just because of your colour of your skin. You should just automatically feel accepted. Unfortunately, that is not the case. I live in a town now that doesn't really have many black people or anyone of colour. It's a very, very white populated county. Not even the town, just the whole county that I'm in. So when I first moved down here, I did really feel like I stuck out because, you know, no one here looks like me. But I'm not gonna not go places anymore in fear of being judged or racism. Like, I'm gonna live how I want to live, do what I want to do, and go where I want to go, regardless of my race and skin colour. Because if you have an issue with that, that's your issue, not my issue. And that is how I feel on that situation. Another thing I get quite a lot is, so I am quite pale for a mixed race person. If you look at my sister, she's very darker than I am. We have the same parents, but she is just a darker shade than I am. I'm quite a light mixed race person. So I like to use a bit of fake tan here and there. And when I say that to people, they're like, why do you fake tan? You're already tan. And I'm like, do you not think black people or mixed race people tan? If the sun comes out, we're gonna be lying in the sun trying to catch a tan. Like, we can tan. Just because we have dark skin doesn't mean we do not tan, and I hate that so much. Like, don't assume that I can't do something just because of my race, because I can do anything that I want. Like, skin colour doesn't play a part in ability or mentality. It doesn't matter. So another incident is when I was at university, I worked really hard on this unit at uni, you know, and I did do a good job, and my grade was really, really low. Now, I know that I didn't deserve that grade. That's not me trying to say, oh, I'm amazing at everything, because I knew that there were some things at uni that I got graded on that were fair grades, but this one in particular, I knew that I deserved a better grade than that. So I peeled it. I messaged loads of lecturers and they didn't help. They didn't give me an answer. They didn't tell me who I could go to. They told me to speak to the person who had marked my paper. So I spoke to the person and his decision was final. So first thought that come to my mind was, is he racist? That shouldn't have even been a thought, but it was my first thought, because he had no like reason to mark me so low other than that fact. But I didn't take it any further because then I didn't want it in turn to ruin any future grades, any future products. And racism in university is a huge issue. If you haven't seen Montana Brown's video on racism, I will link it below because she went to the same university I did. You know, it is a big issue. Something that really bothers me is when people say I'm black, because I'm not. I'm mixed race. My mum is white and my dad is black. I am neither of those colours. I am both combined. You wouldn't look at me and say, oh, she's a white girl. So why would you look at me and say, oh, she's a black girl? Like, I find that so offensive when people say, oh, T, you're so black. Like, I'm not, I'm mixed race. And I would really appreciate if people stop referring to people who are mixed as one colour, because they are not, and acknowledging them as just one colour alone I find is super offensive. So yeah, those are my experiences personally, growing up and stuff. Like I said, it wasn't as aggressive as a lot of people are used to hearing racism stories. I've never been beaten up, I've never experienced anything on that scale, which I'm really grateful and lucky for. But I didn't realise any of those things until I learned that word microaggression. And once I noticed that word, then I started noticing loads of different things throughout my life. So I will leave so many links in the description box below of ways you can educate yourself. There is so many resources out there at the moment to just look up, and you know, like, what harm is it doing? What, like, you can read something, you can learn something. So I asked on my Instagram and my Facebook, and I messaged loads of people, and I just said, I'm making this video. I really appreciate if you can tell me your experiences on being black/mixed race growing up in the UK. So yeah, I'm just gonna read out the responses that I got. Some people want to remain anonymous, which is absolutely fine. I completely understand that. And others people don't mind me mentioning their account, so you can go and support them, because a lot of the issues that I noticed was that there aren't a lot of black or mixed race influencers at the moment, or YouTubers that are like quite big and well known. It makes you wonder why, like why brands aren't working with as many black or mixed race people, and why aren't they getting as many followers, which is mentioned quite a lot in some of the responses. So this is the first response I got. I will put her account on the screen. Growing up in the UK for me was 50-50. I think being mixed race is actually quite hard because you can feel like you have to act a certain way. I know my personality is quite bold and I don't speak like the average white girl. This being said, when I'm around my white grandparents/family, I feel like I talk more white, whereas when I'm with my black grandparents/family, I feel like I can be myself. I also struggled with certain things like my hair. I always straightened my hair growing up, as it was a lot easier for me to go about my day, whereas if I had my natural curly hair out, I would sometimes feel anxious about going to school or work, knowing people are going to comment and ask to touch. Same with bringing my grandma's Jamaican food to work. A white person always has to comment. I don't have many white friends and I don't really class myself as white. I feel like a mixed race person is either white mixed race or black mixed race. There's no in between. Now that is quite interesting to me because I understand where she's coming from with the hair, because I felt exactly the same growing up. Like I said earlier, I get offended when people call me black and not mixed race, so that's quite interesting that you have that she thinks there's either a white mixed race or a black mixed race. Obviously, there is no right or wrong. It's down to everybody's experiences, and I'm so grateful that everyone wants to voice their opinions and use social media as a platform to do this, and use social media as a platform to do so. Yeah, thank you for responding to me. So this one is quite long, and it's one of the most horrendous stories that I got sent. Again, she didn't mind being mentioned, so I'll put her account on screen. So I'm mixed. My dad is Caribbean and my mum is English white. They split when I was young and I went to live with my mum in a white neighbourhood while I went to primary school, secondary school and college until I moved to London for university. My mum had received racist remarks towards her about me being a mixed race child, as people were disgusted at the fact that she had had a relationship and a child with a black male. In primary school, I was one of 2 mixed race girls in the class, and I had come to understand my separation from them very early on. From young, I had an issue with my appearance, not loving my hair, my skin colour, my body type, or my black features, as I had been pressured and brainwashed to believe that my white counterparts were deemed attractive. This followed me as I grew older. I had also experienced members of the class telling me to go back to my own country, and other racist remarks such as being called. Then by the age of 11, I experienced one of the worst racist encounters. I had gone to the park with my friend. She was Filipino, but the problem was not with her. As 7 young white females approached us and chanted that no were allowed in the park repeatedly over and over again. I stayed as I was scared, and I was very quiet when I was young, and quite frankly I was shook to hear what they were saying to me. There was no other children in the park, so there was no one else to help. The girls continued to come towards us in the park and each had a lighter in their hands. Is there a chance in coming closer? They all surrounded me and put the lights up to my face and around my hair, threatening to set me on fire. Luckily I made an escape in between a gap of 2 of them and ran home as fast as I could. I had already known that the police were going to do anything, as my dad had educated me on everything since I was little. But we called the police anyway. The police had gone to each of the children's houses. The police did nothing, not even a warning. Absolutely disgusting. During secondary school, things seemed to be better. However, the constant comparison of, oh, you're pretty because you're lighter skin, or pretty for someone who is black, constantly being picked on my physique and features, such as my lips being larger than theirs, having a flatter nose, which led me to be uncomfortable in my own skin and black features. I did not know how to care for myself. I even used to wash and shampoo my hair every single day. Bearing with my hair is curly because I was told that this is disgusting to be washing my hair once a week like my parents had told me to. However, now I have grown into the woman that I am and love every part of me, which I used to hate, and now I nurture. Although I always knew these things deep down and was aware of the oppression and the way society wanted to make us feel, it is truly scary to think of the state in which it makes us value others. The fact that she experienced people coming towards her with lighters at the age of 11 and the police done nothing is absolutely disgusting, and I think if any police were involved in that incident should be completely ashamed of themselves. Imagine if that was your daughter having a group of girls come up to you with lighters. You know how scary and intimidating that is? It's absolutely disgusting and there's no excuse for it, but racism is taught. No baby is born racist. A baby doesn't even know what colour is when they're first born. They get these ideas and these beliefs from their parents, which has probably been brought down from their parents and their parents. It's a generational thing. It's been passed down. Racism goes through generations because you teach what you're taught, you know? If you're taught a certain way, you're going to teach your child that. So the fact that there are people educating themselves now is so important to not teach their children the same beliefs that their parents might have had growing up. So this is from somebody that I actually know from back home on a Facebook comment. So she put, I was called a monkey/gorilla countless times in school and told to go back to the jungle. I had a friend whose parents said they would never allow their children to be with a black man or woman, and if they were, they would disown them. And the dad said he'd beat the man and he wouldn't let him in the house of one of his daughters who brought him a black man. I used to always ask her if it was okay to come in the house before I went to hers, as I was scared what her parents would say to me next. One day her dad mentioned her speaking to them little black boys, saying, I swear to God if you bring one home. So I asked him and her mum, well, what about me? They replied, oh, not you. You're not that kind of black person. We don't really see you as black, so you're always welcome here. I don't get that. I don't get how you can say, oh, you're not one of those black people. What does that mean? What does that comment mean? So another person who doesn't mind being mentioned, who I will also put her account on screen. So she put, hi Tiana, I am mixed black Jamaican and white British and grew up in Hertfordshire as my parents decided to move out of London before I was born. I grew up and went to school surrounded by white people, which was fine, and I didn't receive any over racism. I was, however, constantly reminded by the boys at school that I was different, that I wasn't attractive and they wouldn't date me because they didn't date black girls. My parents raised me to be confident and always be the bigger person, so I never let any comments affect me and never challenged any statements even though I knew they were in the wrong. This has definitely affected me as an adult in how I see myself and how I handle myself. I can luckily only remember a couple of times I was harassed because of my race, and none of them were violent. It's crazy that I have to feel lucky about this. I do, however, experience microaggression constantly and have had my hair touched, grabbed, pulled in public many times by white people who just want to feel what the texture is like. Each time this happens, I feel like an animal in the zoo or a puppy on show. It's degrading and gives me an immediate sense of other. This all comes down to people not having diverse enough friendship groups and knowing how to behave when they see someone different to them. They feel a sense of entitlement that I would never understand. I share very similar views to this person because I feel lucky to have not experienced much racism, and the fact that I feel lucky to say that is ridiculous. I shouldn't have to feel lucky to not experience racism. I should just not experience it at all. I would never touch someone's hair that I don't know. I wouldn't walk up to somebody in the street and start touching any part of their body because that's an invasion of personal space. This one is very, very long, but so worth every single sentence. So this is from a man called Carly. My voice isn't black, my culture and ideals aren't black. Society will use numbers to prove to me that my intelligence, susceptibility to COVID-19 and tendency towards crime aren't black either. Yet when I walk into a room, it'll be the first thing noticed about me, even if it isn't spoken about. It's weird because I find myself in this often not talked about middle ground. My name is Carly Green, I am a 23-year-old male and I am mixed race. I am not black enough to tick that box on the ethnic section of application forms, but I'm not white enough for people not to be surprised when I go a whole conversation without saying cussing using the word bumperclap. I even had to look up the spelling while writing this. You would not believe the amount of times I've been called a chocolate ice or Oreo for being black on the outside and white on the inside, that is. And while none of the people who have said that to me were doing so out of hate, I only now realise that this just reinforced my own subconsciousness inability to see the people of the world as anything but black and white. This middle ground I live in comes with its own privilege. I have only ever experienced over ill-meaning racism twice in my life, both memories being firmly planted in my physique before the age of 7. In light of recent events and my subsequent self-education, I've realised just how little I know about the history of my black ancestors in Britain due to a colonised curriculum I received in my predominantly white school system. So in the middle of this movement that has overtaken the world, and rightly so, I feel both guilt and pain. I am worried that my ignorance to systemic racism has allowed me to see it continue, and perhaps I've even contributed myself in some of my previous roles and positions of power. I have let microaggressions pass me by, unaware of the subconsciousness damage it was doing to me, and will probably go on to do to others. I feel guilty. I am hurt by those experiencing much worse injustices than I have ever faced. I feel every punch, kick and bullet I see on social media. Every time I see a black person racially abused, violently attacked or unjustly punished, I fear that, finding myself in a similar circumstance, I will receive the same treatment. I am in pain. I haven't spoken about my race in my 23 years of living, and now I am choosing to. My voice is just as valid and important as my black brothers and sisters. I need to listen to their experiences, educate myself in the same way a lot of my white friends are doing right now, and I need to speak up about my life, my experiences, and my ignorance to the hidden racism I experience. I am mixed race. That's really powerful. Again, I resonate with so many of these messages that I've received. He has allowed people to say microaggressions to him, which I have as well, because I didn't even realise they were racist forms, because I didn't really realise that they were in a racist form, like I have mentioned. I have definitely been called black on the outside, white on the inside. I've been called a Kinder Egg, coconut, Oreo. I'm not black on the outside and white on the inside. I'm just me, you know? I'm just me. So this is by another person that I know, but they wish to remain anonymous, which is obviously absolutely fine. I've been shouted at in the street and called a effing just by the station where we live. I've had people at work comment that the black girl in me comes out when I'm angry, which is insinuating that black people are aggressive and angry. I've even had an ex tell me I would probably be accepted by his family, who was white, as I grew up in a white household and there wouldn't be too much of a cultural difference, as if that would be a bad thing. I now live in a village, and after moving out here, I'm realising I am one of 3 people of colour in the community, but I would no longer be going to any local pubs, as you get stared at like you're on display for the whole world to see. I've been very blessed that it's never been consistent, but these things do stick with you, and I think we do tend to brush them under the carpet and keep moving. If you stop and think though, it's really damaging. So we then had a conversation, and then she brought up the fact that she worked in a company and she was the only person of colour in this company, and they were taking group photos, and the person was stood at the top of the stairs and looking down onto the whole team. And they took so many, and so they looked through them all, but the one that they chose to put on the website was the only photo that she was looking down in, as if kind of saying that they didn't want people to know that they had a person of colour working for them. And little things like that, like it's not overly saying that it's racist, but it's not okay, you know, like why out of all of the photos did they pick that one? So another person said to me, growing up I always felt different and knew I was different because none of the people at my school looked like me, apart from 1 or 2 people. But what made me really feel out of place were the comments that were made about my hair, to my face of course. I was constantly told that frizzy hair was ugly, and it was so often that still to this day, I internalised the same ideology. I realised this was problematic when a few of my friends pointed out that my hair on Instagram is always straight. I thought I loved my curls now, but do I really love them when I don't post pics or take pictures with them? I used to get it straightened at every possible opportunity I could to blend in and look like the other girls. There's been a shift now though, because all of a sudden curly hair is beautiful, pretty and hair goals. In fact, the same people who made comments about my hair texture when I was younger are now doing the most to imitate it. And it's difficult because the your hair's ugly mindset is still installed in my head, but it is in the process of being uninstalled. So this is the last one I'm going to read out, but it is quite lengthy, so I will leave a link to her blog. I think she said she's written this about. So I did actually record this, reading it all out, but when I edited it all together, the video come to over an hour long. So I'm just going to leave some of the responses that I got here. Please pause the video and take time to read the responses out, because one, these people took the time out to actually write their experiences out and send them to me, and also some of the things that they have said and mentioned are so important and disgusting, but needs to be spoken about and need to be mentioned. So yeah, please pause the video and just take some time out to read this. So yeah, I really hope that this video was helpful and educational, and again I thank everybody that sent me their experiences. It was so appreciated, and I really hope that if you're watching this and if you are white, you are educating yourself on white privilege. You are listening to what people are saying and not saying all lives matter, because obviously all lives matter. Nobody is saying they are not, but if all lives matter, why is it that black lives seem to matter less than everybody else's? That's the argument. You cannot sit there and tell somebody of colour that their life is equal to those of a white person, because it's not. You may think it's not, and if you think it's not, then you are ignorant to the issue that is going on in the world, and that just shows your white privilege. That if you are saying in response to these protests, all lives matter, of course they matter. That's why we're fighting for equal rights, because we know that all lives matter. There is so much more that needs to be said on this topic, and hopefully this is the start of the end, and sadly I feel like it's gonna take a long time to see actual change. It's better to start now than never. Yeah, that was the video for this week. Like I said, it was a bit of a serious topic, but it needs to be spoken about, it needs to be mentioned. So yeah, if you have experienced something like this, or if you would like to learn more about this issue from somebody firsthand, then just leave a comment below or message me on Instagram. You know, I'm not gonna feel offended if you say, oh, I watched your video, I would like to learn more about what I can do to help. I don't find that offensive. I find that really endearing that somebody wants to learn and change. So yeah, that was it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon for a brand new video.